Okay, guys, we got the second read through. And we're gonna do. It's the second post I've put on Substack. It's the reaction of capital, anti-fascist in form. Uh, so honestly, the reason why I chose Chaz, it's just I was just bullshitting. Like, it's a liberal, like it's a liberal place, but it's like can be seen as authoritarian. So like I don't know. I just wanted to like be inversive there. So here's the actual article. But first, what's with the title? The reaction of capital, which is the common diagnosis of fascism, and it's very accurate, of course. Anti-fascist in form. Because what I'm going to talk about here is a particular situation I construct where you can see uh, anti-fascism be uh, fascist because of the nature of the new sociality in the old or where anti-fascism can react from the position of capital. That's the best way of putting it. Gotta bring up my laptop. The new form of sociality is one much more antisocial because it is reflective of the prolonged and triumphant existence of capital. Self expanding value began to be the principle behind ideology. A subject takes it in and puts it back out as profitably as reasonably possible. I wrote reasonable possible. That was a mistake. This form of exchange is far more common for normies and above because they learn it through their early socialization. So I'm getting into uh a concept I went over last time and just fleshing it out. All glory and honor is subjected to this antisocial profit motive. You cannot overspend in the field of striving and human will, or it appears as either some malicious performance or a lack of efficiency. The old form was rational and bound by some precedent or social totality. Uh, Keep in mind these two forms of sociality. New sociality, sex over ideology as well, is anti-socially social, a product of a bourgeois base, and in a way, feminine. So these are some like traits that are going to be important later. Uh, why is it anti-socially social? Because I mean, if you just look at people, everybody's somewhat insidious, trying to feed off each other and get something out of each other, right? They're trying to mog. They're trying to take each other's girl. They're trying to bitch each other. Just this game that people play in the back of their mind. Uh, and why is it feminine? Well, here we go. One acquiesces to the ideology around themselves and accepts what is upheld by others, declining to challenge contemporary modernity. So this exact performance I speak of that everybody is in, this performativity, is the fact that they're choosing to just play into it and perform is a feminine thing in nature because it's something where you acquiesce to what's around you instead of trying to challenge it and build up new values in a kind of Nietzschean way. Instead of doing that, no, I'm just gonna appeal to that, and that's why it's fundamentally feminine. Uh, a product of a bourgeois base, which I say bourgeois base instead of capitalist base because obviously in the dictatorship of the proletariat, things like this would not be happening. So, uh, where were we? Values are subordinated to virtues. Old sociality is pro-social, purely human, albeit often rooted in national identity, and masculine. So I just basically assign it the opposite traits because it's just simply what it is. So uh it's pro-social because it's just people getting together and living something, right? And purely human. It's all of it comes from just the things that humans do uh in production and in life. And it is rooted sometimes in a national identity. There's sometimes obviously different nations have different social existences. So a lot of that is going to be because of that, of course. The and masculine. It's masculine because it is hyper positive, and it is built on it's predicated on prosperity. One's values are not undermined, but association is predicated on such, along with other human rational goals and rational human goals. Incels find themselves in a difficult position today for this reason. The new sociality, and contemporary modernity in general, has failed to give them any meaningful sense of identity, community, or existence beyond the sinister, degenerate character of sex haver ideology. Uh, Quaintly, they refuse to capitulate to that formation of existence around them because it is not attempting to further anything that, culturally speaking, is human. They see this, and like I said, they see this very insidious, and they're like, I don't want to do this. This this is meaningless. This is like nihilistic and degenerate. I don't want this. And so the incel in his persistent level of humanity attempts to become a vessel of preservation for the old sociality. It is done by whatever means seem available, certain, and total. So they try to be these traditional people, you know? They try to uphold something more meaningful. Uh, Normies and chads are the main engine of bourgeois cultural production because, in their own vain interest, they collectively recycle and reproduce bourgeois ideals via sex haver ideology. Oh, they collectively, yeah, yeah. Uh, in this sense, their sociality is one which is bourgeois, and in turn, it's most closely intertwined with the concept of capital. It is ideology as quasi capital. When the hegemonic nature of the normies and chads clashes with the independent thought and values of the incels, this is capital reacting to humanity, reacting to labor. So I make that small logical extension that if there's capital and there's humanity, then the human side would be the one where labor is found because labor is just humans using their energy and their strength, right? It's not a very big leap. These encounters of domination and extraction are reflective of the reaction of capital. So, if sex haver ideology is capital, if contemporary modernity is capitalist, if the new sociality is capitalist, then when this begins to go against the traditional values, that's only capital reacting to labor. It's saying no, forget your values, forget your family, forget your nation. It is subordinate to capital, or it is subordinate to what it's spun as is it's subordinate to progress, right? Uh, Incels take up a lot of reactionary ideology. They turn to what they see as a resurgence of the true way and a better future. The old sociality is precisely here, especially in Heidegger's critique of modernity. Everything is subordinate to some non-human machine, and there's no and there is no thought of what the point of being is. The nation, present or imaginary, remedies the nihilism and cold-blooded character of contemporary modernity for the curious incel. So incels derive the old sociality and meaning from this in a world that doesn't do that for them. This is the primary link to fascist theory. Yep. They solidify their existing commentaries into a set of deeply held values and stand before society with no mental compromise. So, of course, they might compromise on the outside, but they are sticking with what they believe up here. They are not being convinced otherwise. Da, da, da. Where was I? Yeah. Values of prosperity, a collective striving, and an identity beyond pure logos. The incel stands for the old sociality, and additionally, the old form of masculinity. However, the fatigue in standing for something that society is diametrically opposed to leaves them masculine only in spirit. So, obviously, and here we go, I'm just going to finish here. On the outside, the stereotypes hold some truth. The picture of being unathletic, unhygienic, and awkward. So yeah, incels stand for the old sociality, but that type requires you to be masculine and well off and like proletarian really. And they don't really have that. But why don't they have that? Not because they don't believe in it or they don't buy into it, because of the fact that society is like not like society is so it's in such discontinuity with that with those ideas. You're stuck in your time, you know. So instead of them prospering through sex haver ideology, they're just kind of in this limbo of just doing nothing, and they don't really they don't try to prosper in a world that's not here. They're not really prefigurative. So instead, they just uh devote their actions to their mind. It's kind of like an action of idea reflecting idea. Like they just want to learn. They just want to, you know, um, embrace these things up here. So they read, they watch, they support, and but it doesn't come out. The normies status and that of the Chad presupposes some level of reverence or of so- normie status and that of the Chad presupposes some level of reverence of influence. It comes largely from the ability to project dominance more efficiently, but also his alliance to the network of sex haver ideology. His own spirit, however, is one of capitulation and acquiescence, a feminine, submissive spirit, encased in a masculine character. So, normies and chads, they got muscle, they got height, they got whatever they need. Uh, but on the inside, what are they doing really? They're just capitulating to everybody else. They're just they're just going with the crowd, uh, and appealing to those around, performing. So they're feminine on the inside, masculine on the outside. It's kind of like Nietzsche's critique of the value system that he lived in, slave morality, what have you. If we were to have some sort of scenario between an incel and a normie, where the normie dominates the incel in the sense of masculinity, it is not only in some sense capital reacting to labor, but also femininity using a form of masculinity to attack the tenets of masculinity. It's a slight attempt to fully redefine masculinity in the final, most antisocial way. So, and I go over this piece by piece. So, how is this capital reacting to labor? There is one sociality reflective of capital and antisocial, and another which is reflective of human interests and prosocial. Capital is constituting the antisocial character of the new sociality, especially when it reacts against the old sociality. The irony is that since some incels uphold the old sociality through fascism, which is seen by Marxists as as the reaction of capital against labor. Capital is reacting to labor in a way uh, by which labor often has to agitate against capital through anti-fascism. Anti-fascism here becomes fascist, not in the neoconservative sense where the angry Antifa protesters start a dictatorship, but in a very direct Marxist sense. It is much like Adorno's concept of the authoritarian personality. This sounds deranged and schizophrenic until you understand it with respect to the content and the form. The reaction is anti fascist in form. Oh my god, they said the thing. Because it is opposing fascistic values. However, in content, it is quite fascistic itself. It is the existing culture and social existence invoking authority on the dissidents and attempting to create one hegemonic culture that acts in its own automatic interest. So, am I saying that all hegemony is fascist? No, I'm saying that that this level of authority uh is like fascistic, and the fact that it goes unquestioned it would go into that as well. Like it's fascistic because it's trying to it's one cultural existence just swallowing everything up, right? Similar to how the different subgroups of Italy were like just kind of subordinated to the the main one, I'll say. How then is this femininity using a form of masculinity to attack the tenets of masculinity? Because there is a feminine subject which is granted the best and most masculine qualities, and due to this femininity, there is no striving or will behind it. It is masculinity in its purest and most synthetic form. It is then turned against someone whose spirit is embalmed with that striving and will, but lacks the circumstances to effect that authentic human masculinity into the world. The target is that inner person, not the outside chud. The point of provocation to the sex haver by the incel is the rejection of contemporary modernity and all the ideological characteristics I've listed before. This form of existence is highly incompatible with sex haver ideology, and so it must be annihilated by the system. The great overcoming by the incel puts to rest all of his silly ideals and progresses society into a beautiful world of fun and partying. Being a little sarcastic there, but I want to get into this. So feminine, like it's kind of just what I said earlier, right? The new sociality is feminine, uh, and in spirit, and when the person, the masculine, uh, person, the body, has this and smites the chudded incel, it's actually femininity using a masculine, you know, person against masculinity in a feminine person. Uh yeah. And so like the tenets of masculinity, the fundamentals are completely wiped out. Who cares about human striving? Who cares about uh human will, I should say rather. Who cares about what have you, right? Who cares about any of this? It's just purely a superficial concept. But it's really not. It goes way deeper than the superficial level. But um I want to like, huh. Like imagine Dean Withers, right? And then imagine uh who could I even say? I don't know. Um Not Nick Fuentes cuz that motherfucker is just a complete degenerate and everybody knows that. Clav. Yeah. No, well. Hmm. Uh Okay, I got it. I got it. It took me a second. Imagine like Hassan Piker beating up, like imagine Hassan Piker challenging Tucker Carlson to a boxing match, and either like Hassan wins or Tucker like doesn't even do it, and then that's like embarrassing for him. And then like Hassan turns around, he's like, "Yeah, guys, masculinity is just about like you like to go to the gym or something." Yeah, that's what I mean, right? The tenets are wiped out, and it's just turned into a commodity, really. So yeah, that took me a second, but yeah, um, I haven't been thinking about this much. How does how though does this possibly seek to fully redefine masculinity in the final, most antisocial way? Kind of gave this away. It is nothing more than one force attempting to overpower another. Sex haver ideology attempting to usurp legitimacy from the old way to guarantee that bourgeois cultural producers can produce the most impact from the smallest amount of work. They only need one idea for the yields of putting out many more. This social progression will create something new one day, but for now, it remains an anarchic network of performance and subconscious competition. Right, so it just as people, like I said, as people perform, as people appeal to others, uh, and as people are trying to, you know, um, profit from each other in this way too. They're just collectively like carrying forth ideas that appeal to the bourgeois standard and passing it around and just amplifying the effects. We communists must try to create a new form of sociality and incorporate it into a nation state. It will be similar to the old sociality, authentically human, driven by principle, and guided by mutual social relations. People should approach each other with a bottom line of dignity and rational circumstances of interaction. Through this sociality, we oppose fascists and their objectives, but we take these incels and show them that we can have a nation that brings forth something similar to the old sociality without producing the dysfunction of corporatism and artificial empire. They will accumulate to the intellectual forefront because their existence is critique. Their existence is one which stands on an island and critiques the ocean and its ships. Through these tactics, humanity is at the primary, and in turn, labor is. Such is far more reflective of the idea that production must be for the reproduction of civilization over abstract profit. This is the way. Let me just go over that metaphor. Uh, their existence is critique. Their existence. Okay, so their existence is critique, right? How? Incels. They're critical of basically everything that goes on in a normie society. Like it's all you know, cope. It's all blue pill. These are goy cattle, etc. They notice this level of consumerism. They notice this the performativity in society. They notice so many things, and they just let loose. So why is their existence critique though? Because they're they've been alienated from it, or at least society has alienated itself from it. Right? The incel didn't move. Society just moved away because it got more reactionary, more performative, and more capitalistic. Uh, so they just stand there in that position and critique it. You know, they they're just observing something that just people are just that society's just doing. Uh, their existence is one which stands on an island and critiques the ocean and its ships. So they're isolated from this network of utter performance and acquiescence. I could reword it in a million ways. They're isolated from it, and they just they just call it out either to themselves, to their little circles, or even out loud, and they get maybe humiliated for it in order to conceal what they discover. Yeah, so I mean, you can kind of w- work out what I'm trying to say there, like through this. So we would essentially go to these incels, and we know what they want, right? I've established what they want. We offer them that through the dictatorship of the proletariat instead of some corporatist fascist state. And we're saying fascism will not do this for you. If it does, it'll come with a bunch of costs, and uh, you'll be left with nothing. You'll be left with, you know, what fascism got the first time. A ton of social dysfunction, plummeting economy. Uh, if you can see this in the, I had a film class and we went over Italian neorealism. You basically get the kind of things you see in that movie, right? Pawn shop, and the mattresses are stacked up here because people are just selling their mattresses to get uh, necessities. Like you get immense dysfunction and terror, right? Uh, the government has to keep this hegemonic cultural order that's not reproducing itself, and it has to act as an empire and meet the chauvinistic needs that everybody has. It's just not sustainable. So you offer them, hey, if you really want tradition, you really want principle, you really want values, then we have to get this from a Marxist Leninist nation state, where it's a nation state. It's like, probably like civic nationalism, and we're doing it, and we're acknowledging the fact that it's a superstructure, and so we're keeping it in its place, but we're nurturing it, uh, and if people are being unprincipled, then they just will not get the same glory from the propaganda that everyday people who agree to this will get. Um, there's more to be said about that. I've been thinking about writing some kind of programmatist work where I talk about how to like um counteract incel pipelines and make them communist ones. But yeah, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed.